Yeah, eat, sleep, fantasy, you rockin' with the best. NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. We talking mock drafts, running backs, better follow the conversation with
John,
Dale, Christian, and Armando. Screaming Eat Nation, we doing what we like. Tune in every week, guarantee we get it hype. Fantasy football enthusiasts, I know you plan to be joining us on Eat, Sleep, Fantasy. Yeah, Eat, Sleep, Fantasy. Eat, Sleep, Fantasy.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Eat, Sleep, Fantasy Football Podcast, also known as the knockoff Raiders helmet of the fantasy football podcast world. I changed it up there. My name is Christian Brito, and joining me as always is Mr. Jonathan Lamar Chapman. How you doing, John?
Oh, man, I like the full use of the name. I feel like I'm in trouble. That's like when the mom comes out, you hear that middle name, you know your ass about to get spanked. But hey, I'm doing great. It's a good day.
I need to be careful with that. That might turn you on, I feel.
Freud would
Don't
say
like a little
yes.
spanking?
No, it's not my thing. I'm a pleaser, not a punisher.
Okay. This got really weird really quick.
I like it.
So let's move on. Antonio Brown. Let's start right off the bat because that's what we just mentioned as what we are, fantasy football. Let's talk about his helmet situation and whether or not this guy's actually serious about wanting to sit out until his helmet situation is resolved. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, he's kind of going up against a brick wall. He disappeared from the Raiders altogether. He has gone completely AWOL. He's not responding to any calls. And the report out of Napa Valley, where they have their training camp, is they have no idea where he even is. And it's not about his foot issue, which a lot of people thought it was. He does have frostbite, if you want to complicate this freaking alternative universe that is Antonio Brown even further. But it's not about that. It's about his helmet. And so what happened was the NFLPA and the NFL, they've come forward with these new enhanced enforcement of helmet regulations. And what happened was last year was the last year that you could use the old kind of outdated helmets, and 31 different players chose to use those. Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, Antonio Brown, they were kind of the most prolific or famous ones. But that is no longer allowed. So everybody has had to hand those helmets in or keep them, whatever, but you have to use the new designed safety helmets, whatever. No problem, right? Wrong.
Yeah.
Antonio Brown tried to sneak his old helmet in and got caught to the Raiders. They are like, hey, you can't use this. In fact, if you are out here in practice with this helmet, the entire Raiders organization is suspect of fines and punishments. You can't do that. He says, all right, cool. He puts on the new helmet, goes throughout practice. Done, right? Wrong.
Why are you doing this that way?
It's just
okay. Continue, but stop doing that.
I'm not going to stop. Wrong. It's a tribute to Charlie Murphy, the habitual line stepper routine. Mm-hmm. But Michael Silver, he put this out on Twitter, and I'm just going to read this one exactly as he typed it. However, sometime in the next couple of weeks, Brown once again tried to take the field with his old helmet, which he had since had repainted with colors approximating but not completely mimicking the Raiders' silver and black design. So, he went and hired a professional to try to recreate it to make it look like the Raiders' new helmets, and it didn't work. So he got pissed off, got caught again, and just left. And now reports are out he will retire if he doesn't get to play with his old helmet. So there's that.
He said he'll stay away from football. This man and his feet are both crazy.
Yes, he is absolutely insane. Now, I do think that he will play this year because he has $30 million guaranteed, which means he just has to be able to try to play football. So if he walks away for non-football reasons, which this would qualify as, he loses $30 million guaranteed. If he comes back and blows his knee out and can never walk again, he gets all $30 million. But if he chooses to remove himself, he loses all of it. So he will be back. He's just fucking weird.
Yep.
Anyway.
Now, I will say, if I were in a situation where this is what I was comfortable with. And then I was told I could not do it, but I felt like it actually affected my play. I understand where he's coming from. And if he elected, this is something that you mentioned, the NFLPA is the one that's really pushing for this.
Yeah, it's not the NFL. This is the Players Association. So it's a whole different.
Yeah. So I feel like if it's something that I really wanted to do and like I signed all the necessary documents to do so, like you should be able to do it. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if you're with me on that side, but I feel like if he really feels it affects his play and he wants this, just let him do it, man.
Yeah, and I think the problem is these are part of the regulations in the concussion settlement for player safety, which is the biggest kind of red herring or big red X for the NFL to continue being what it is, man, if brain issues and all this stuff keeps continuing, the NFL eventually is going to have to change everything. So this is kind of, I don't think that this is going to work. He's going to have to conform. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
So
he'll figure it out. But you think he'll be there game one? I think he'll be there game one. I don't think there's any doubt of that, right?
I sent several trades for Antonio Brown in all my dynasty leagues, so that should let you know how I feel.
Yep. Cool. All right, let's get back to it because we have been recapping preseason week 1. We did a third of the game so far. We're going to continue today with the second third of those games, and then on our next pod we'll finish out. We want to give you a good idea of everything that's going on in this preseason so far. So let's keep going team by team, and let's kick off today with the Jags and Ravens. All right,
talk about a fun football game to watch. 29-0, the Ravens blow out the Jags, and it was just a boring-ass game. Even though the Ravens put up 29 points, it was just boring. Now, fantasy takeaways, I think there's a couple things on the Jacksonville side that we can say, all right, this is important. The quarterback position was god-awful, so throw that out the window. But the running back rotation behind Leonard Fournette is what is interesting. Seems like Alfred Blue will continue to be the guy, so it's not going to be Raquel Armstead, even though they rotated back and forth. I'm telling you right now, Alfred Blue looks much better, and his running style is almost identical. It's like the poor man versions of Leonard Fournette. Very upright runner, very physical and bruising, whereas Armstead's a little bit smaller. So I really do think if you're wanting to handcuff Fournette in a deep league, I think Blue is the guy that would get snaps this year. However, Fournette is a mess, and if he does choose to walk away at the end of this year, I think Armstead would be the long-term play. Do you agree with that?
I do. It does feel like Alfred Blue has spent his entire career being a fantasy football handcuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if Fournette were to go down, it would be a lot of Blue until we realize that he's not that good, and then Reichwell would get his shot, even if he is smaller. And I don't know if he can hold up, but I think he's the better of the two.
And I'll say this, like, Alfred Blue is that, like, coach's favorite son. You know what I mean? He always does what you're going to ask him to do. He's not like a fantasy darling. He's not going to bust off like a 20-yard, 30-yard run. But he always moves forward. He doesn't fumble. He's decent, and he's very good in pass protection. So it's easy to keep him on the field. But again, if the Jags suck like they did last year and they get out of contention, Blue's not going to be the guy. If they're competitive, I think that they would keep him in there because he's going to keep Nick Foles healthy. Whereas rookies, a big reason why they don't get the playing time, especially running backs, is pass protection, which Alfred Blue excels at. So
let's quickly talk about the guy that they're backing up in Leonard Fournette. What is your outlook for him for 2019? Are you optimistic that he can bounce back and be this first-round running back that we saw, in his rookie-ish season? And can he be that type of guy again, or is it just going to be the same that we saw last year?
I think that he will be that. He is one of my dark horse candidates for most touches in the NFL. I really do think he'll be north of 300 touches. Again, you've got to put the asterisk of health and attitude. We just got through talking about Antonio Brown. Fournette's not far from that. Let's just be very, very honest. However, if they start winning early, he is a front runner. He always has been. Then I think he is a guy that could lead in carries the entire NFL. So he is a huge home run swing, and I'm fine with that. He is my RB13, just behind Kerryon Johnson, ahead of Nick Chubb, actually.
Wow.
So, yeah, I like him.
Okay, cool. Let's look at the other side of the ball, the brutal side of the ball from this game. Let's start with the quarterback position. Lamar Jackson still looks like he can't pass the ball.
Man,
that's not his preference in the NFL.
Yes, and his stat sheet came out well. 4 of 6, 59 yards and a touchdown. He had 3 passes that were like the worst passes I've ever seen get called back on penalties, and so they didn't show up on the stat sheet, but he overthrows a lot of wide open receivers. He's going to be fantasy relevant, and I like that because of his rushing potential. But, the number one story here is Lamar Jackson's going to be fine. But I'm telling you right now, the number one wide receiver on this team is going to be Miles Boykin. He is the guy to go get. So if you're looking for something to take away from this fantasy relevant Baltimore team because they run the ball so much, Miles Boykin is basically the new Tyler Lockett. He's going to have 2 to 3 catches a game for like 78 yards and a touchdown. And he looked incredible not only with Lamar Jackson, it was the number one target for him. He looked great with the number 2s as well. And just another side nugget about who Miles Boykin is, he's out of TCU, and he had the highest catch radius of anybody that went through the combine. A lot of people gave all of the credit to DK Metcalf as being this physical freak, and rightfully so. Miles Boykin is that athletic and buff. Like, that's just who he is. Vertical was the top. He's a 6'4" dude, super long arms. So just think about DK Metcalf. That's who Miles Boykin is. Very physical, just gifted athlete. And so perfect fit for this vertical passing game. He's not going to need a lot of targets, but he's going to be special. Really, really like that kid.
Right now, if you're drafting in Dynasty, let's say you're doing a rookie-only draft, right? It's not your first season. You're doing a rookie-only draft. You have the opportunity to take either Miles Boykin, who you're talking about, or his counterpart in the Baltimore offense, Marquise Brown. You're taking Boykin?
They're going so very different. So Draft Capital would say definitely first-round pick in the NFL draft, with what's going on there. But if I had to choose one of them, I would probably take Marquise Brown, just because you're going to be able to trade him. Worst case scenario, he's got a lot more name recognition. However, I do think Miles Boykin outscores him. Brown's going as the number 8 wide receiver in rookie-only drafts, and Boykin's going as the number 12 wide receiver in rookie-only draft. But I would take Marquise Brown and then trade him to whoever has Miles Boykin and try to pick up something else. I don't know if that answers your question or is a cop-out, but it's what I do.
No, that's fine. I kind of mentioned this when I did my solo pod. If I was a team that I'm looking for 2020 and not 2019, I love Marquise Brown because I don't think this is going to be his year. I think, one, he's still coming back and is not fully healthy. And 2, I don't see him having a consistent year being that kind of speedy guy. But I do believe 2020, he'll have a year of the NFL under his belt. He'll have a full healthy year, and he will be kind of that breakout second-year wide receiver, but you're not going to see it in 2019, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
I like it.
All right, cool. Let's as far as the kind of running back situation, no Ingram in this game, but the rotation behind him, Gus Edwards, Dixon, Justice Hill. Is Edwards the backup to Ingram right now?
I think he is right now. And the question is this. There's 2 different types of backs there. So you have Mark Ingram is going to be the guy, and if Mark Ingram goes down, it looks like Gus Edwards would be the immediate backup for that early down kind of power running back role. Now, the third down / pass catching role, That is between the other two guys. And Dixon, who just, Jesus, man, all preseason team every single year, either gets suspended or hurt, but the coaches love him there. He's been there, and they just keep him around. Justice Hill is going to be the long-term play there for sure. So if I had to own one of these backups, it'd be Justice Hill big time. I think his upside is beyond the other ones, but he does have an uphill climb. So,
yeah, but I think if tomorrow it came out that Mark Ingram is going to miss the 2019
Gus
season,
Edwards would be the guy.
Gus Edwards would be the guy on the roster, right? On the sheet, he's going to show up as he's starting the game.
Correct. Now, if that same injury happens, let's say week 6, I think it would be Justice Hill.
No, but the thing is, but what I was trying to get to is Gus Edwards will be the guy on the sheet that says, hey, he's starting the game, he's taking the first snap, but at the end of the game, Justice Hill will have the same amount of work and better stats.
Yep. Very well said. Look at you. I like that. I like that.
All right. Cool. Let's move on to the next game, Titans and Eagles. Ryan Tannehill, let's start there.
He crushed it,
He
man.
should be starting over Marcus Mariota, right?
Yeah. I mean, Marcus Mariota has fewer touchdown passes than he does games played over the last 2 years. Yeah. And he didn't look good either. He went out there for the first couple series, goes 4 for 8, threw for a total of 24 yards with all the ones. Tannehill comes back in with the same group and looks incredible. And I do want to say shout out to Clayton for prepping all this stuff. He has been killing it with research lately. So if we say anything smart, understand that is not us. That is at Kado Clayton, or Kado Clayton if you are Brito. So,
I'm gonna ask him just on our next pod. Spoiler alert! I'm gonna ask him on our next pod. How do you pronounce his last name? And then we'll go from there, because I might have been doing it wrong for years at this point.
Yeah.
And not corrected, because he's fucking Canadian and is not going to correct me.
Nope, he won't. Oh, it's okay, Brito.
That was pretty good. I'm going to put on our sheet just like a bunch of like trap words to see if he'll say them. Just
don't
put
you
them
know?
out everywhere.
And I will give his podcast. He just started a recent podcast that's legit. It's called Fantasy Football Up North, and it's just a couple Canadians with the Canadian accent talking football, and it is absolutely incredible. And it's funny, he even put in a Canadian Football League reference. I'm not finished talking about Tennessee, but I want to put this in there. This is an exact quote in the research page that he put in. Eagles lost backup Nate Sudfeld with a broken wrist, but before leaving, he threw a beautiful 75-yard touchdown to the Canadian Football League standout, Markin Mitchell. That is just, he's so nice, even though this guy broke his arm. It's just who he is. So, love you, Clayton.
Yes. Is Marcus okay? Who is the worst starting quarterback in the NFL?
Whoever the Redskins put out there.
Okay, fair enough.
All 3 of them.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Never mind.
Mariota would be in the conversation.
He'd be in the bottom 5.
Yes.
And I will say this, as maligned and hated as a lot of people did, for some reason didn't like Tannehill down here in Miami, he is not in that conversation for me. I'd say he is not a bottom 10 quarterback in the NFL. And if he can just not have Adam Gase as a coach, or not have a revolving coaching staff for a couple years, I think he's a competent NFL quarterback.
I agree. His athleticism is nuts, man. People forget he was a wide receiver for
too.
Texas A&M. Yeah, man. Shout out to Hard Knocks back in the day. Solid. Now, a couple other things that I do want to talk about with Tennessee is Adam Humphries is going to be the guy. He had 6 targets on the first drive alone with the ones. He only got 4 catches for 24 yards, but if you are in a PPR league, that number 1 wide receiver is going to be Adam Humphries. He looked unbelievable. He was just running kind of a little quick curly Q route or an in and out. Think just whatever Edelman always does. That's basically what he did. And whatever angle the defenders took on him, they couldn't touch him. He looks unbelievable. If he was on another team, people forget he was a top 24 wide receiver last year. So if he was on another team, then, geez, it would be something special. That's all I got to say.
I'll say this. If the coaching staff wants to win, they should throw the ball to Adam Humphries. They should have Ryan Tannehill throwing the ball and forget about the optics of having Mariota be on the bench and Corey Davis not being your number one. Mm-hmm. Just admit that those are not your guys, and you can move on.
I think that Corey Davis does bring something that's special. He's very physical and he runs very good routes, but you are correct. He's not a number one wide receiver. I think that he would probably start on 26 of the NFL teams.
Yeah, but he's a 2. And that's nothing wrong with that.
Correct. He's a 2 with big play upside.
There you go.
Yeah. So now jumping over to the other side, the Eagles. We talked about how Sutfeld came out and got hurt. Now this is a big deal because if you want to talk about injury prone or whatever, which I'm not a believer in, but Carson Wentz has been hurt a lot, and Nate Sudfeld, whom they believe in, he's got a broken wrist. So what are you going to do? They got Cody Kessler as the next backup. I don't think you want to roll with that. So curious to see.
What are you going to do?
I'd sign a guy that started quarterback in the Super Bowl. Personally, that's what I would do. Who's still out there, and just put out a workout tape. That's what I would do.
Yep.
You don't want to touch that, do you?
I would. Fuck. I was trying to work in a pun there. Like I would get down on one knee to see that happen. But
there you go. Brito's used to getting on his knees for the stuff he wants. Now,
yeah, that's what I was worried about there.
Yep. Thanks, man. The protests we all need. Now, running back wise, Miles Sanders came out. He didn't wow anybody. 3 catches for 3 yards, which 3 rushes for 3 yards. That's definitely not great, but it's what it is. He's going to.
I'll tell you what, though.
Yeah,
I think he's just getting started.
I do too. I really, really like him.
I think he's going to be just fine this year, man.
Yep. Especially towards the second half of the season. I can't wait for him not to get work in week 1 and 2, and I'm going to trade for him everywhere. So that's my plan. Buy low, sell high. Now, Dallas Goedert, who I absolutely love and will be a top tight end at some point in his career. 3 catches for 50 yards. He did get banged up a little bit, but him and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside both looked very, very good. That Eagles roster is so freaking deep at every position, especially on the offensive side where there's O-line, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. I think they probably have one of the best rosters in the NFL. It doesn't matter. They just have so many guys. They've done a hell of a job. But
deep at every position. Yeah. We might as well call them the Debbies.
Oh! I love you, Debbie.
Me too.
Debbie's Dell's mom. I don't know if people know that.
For those...
Just so we're all clear.
If you don't know that by now, you've never heard our show before. If you've never heard our show before, welcome. We do fantasy football with a little bit of a twist, and that twist is Dale's mom on our dick.
Shit. That was beautiful. Wow. That was really good. Shout out to Debbie. All right, what do we got next, boss?
Hold on, I'm trying to pull up exact quotes from Dale that his mom said something today.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, I hope she's listening.
Move the show on. I need to pull something up for us because this is...
It's worth it. All right, the next game that we are going to go through is the Houston Texans versus the Green Bay Packers. Now, this was actually...
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
So Dale sent a message in our group chat this morning saying, hey, my mom just asked how the pod was going. Then she asked for me to put it on the phone. I said no. She said, why? I need to hear if you talk about me.
Oh, man. Dale doesn't talk about you.
Nope.
But...
At all.
That is awesome. So if you are listening out there, Debbie, we love you. We love you.
All right, let's let's continue with Texans and Packers, like you mentioned.
All right, probably the most fantasy relevant information out there is Kiki Cootie, who, man, yeah, whenever he's on the field is amazing. He just can't get off the field. It's just rough. He's always hurt. He's been dealing with a hamstring issue all the time, and then he muffed a punt that was recovered by the Packers for a touchdown, which was bad. Then he gets injured, helped off the field, just looked really, really bad. But supposedly it's not as severe as everybody thought. They're talking about a lower leg issue that could be about a month, but it's just, get used to this. It's what it's going to be. Now, good for the Texans, they just traded for Duke Johnson.
Right.
They gave up a 4th-round pick for him, but if he plays 10 games, that goes to a 3rd. So they paid a huge premium for Duke Johnson. Now, he could immediately jump into the slot role if Kiki Cootie is going to be out for a while. I guarantee you he will be taking snaps at running back and at the slot receiver position. So, I mean, everything for Duke Johnson is trending up. If you had him before in Cleveland, he is much more valuable now. And with Kiki out, he is even more valuable because he's just an awesome pass-catching back. The Miami running backs, man. You're a Miami fan, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're my second team after the Gators, but yeah.
How do you like the Gators and Miami?
I grew up a Canes fan, but I went to the University of Florida.
Gotcha. That makes sense. But if they play, you root for Florida?
Yes.
All right. I respect
That's
that.
pretty much the only time I don't root for the Hurricanes is if they play like they do to open the season this year.
Oh, I like it. I like those matchups. But outside of that, there's really not a lot to take away from on the side of the Texans. The only thing you do need to know is that offensive line sucks. Whoever is quarterback is going to get destroyed. You know, Deshaun Watson led the NFL with most sacks last year, and even though they drafted 2 high-end rookies to help that situation out, they've already lost their starting center and their backup center, Greg Mance, and Joe Webb was just getting pressure up in front of his face the whole time. So that's a concern for the entire offense, but nothing too much more to take away from there.
Oh, I got 3 quick takeaways. Kiki Cootie belongs in my conversation from the last pod of top 5 best NFL names. Mm-hmm. Duke Johnson is one of the best pass-catching running backs in the league, but never really seems to have been able to get the ball rolling in terms of rushing the ball. Do you feel like he's a legitimate threat to Lamar Miller right now?
No, but I do think it gives them a complimentary 1-2 punch. It's still
He's
Lamar Miller's thing, right? And will be for early on in the season. But Lamar Miller is going to be at his best when he gets 15 touches. And I would argue the exact same thing for Duke Johnson. So you can use them the exact same way. It's not like you have your primary back and then a third down back. That's not the case. They're interchangeable. So the defenses won't be able to key on personnel based on those 2 guys, if that makes sense.
Why? I'm going to look at it from, if this was my fan base, why wouldn't you do that? Because I think, in my opinion, I think Lamar Miller is perfect for that. Just give him the ball first and second down every time, and then have Duke come in and be your third down back always. You don't think that's the right strategy?
With certain teams, I'd be okay with that. But with Deshaun Watson and what Bill O'Brien's done there, they like to throw it on first down. They love to throw it on first down, in fact. And I think that's a much smarter way to go. You know, Warren Sharp's book that he just put out there, I forget the title, but he talks a lot about that. And the stats and everything seems to back it up. But, I'm not a Lamar Miller believer. You know, I think he's kind of, I don't know, he would probably be the starting running back on 3 teams in the NFL. I think Houston's one of those. So,
right. Yeah. You are actively about to get arrested. So let's move on.
We're killing it at Eat Sleep Fantasy. They coming to get us.
God.
I liked it.
I did not.
You liked it. That was good. On the fly.
I did not like it.
I think I have a new favorite thing.
Saying jokes that are worse than Dale's?
Maybe, but there's something that happens. You know, I am a teacher in my other life, And whenever you do like the stupid dad joke and the kids cringe,
I like dad jokes.
It's like, hell yeah. So like in a way, if I could say something that makes you kind of like, rub your nose, like where you're like upset, like that makes me feel good. I don't know why.
You need to make me rub my penis instead, because that makes me feel good.
Okay, that's all right. Well, we can turn on the video conference and let's have a good time.
I am not wearing a shirt. So, let's talk a little bit about the other side of the ball. What would you like to mention here about the Packers? Because, I mean,
there's not much there, to be honest with you.
Quarterback
play. Kaiser looked okay. You got to give him, his whatever. He looked all right. Now, the running back situation is very interesting in Green Bay. Aaron Jones is finally back. He just came back in practice today on Saturday, depending on when you are listening to this. He's missed 9 straight practices with his hamstring, but he's back. Dexter Williams has filled in very, very well. He went 14 carries for 62 yards. It kind of seemed like the goal of Green Bay was, let's do a doomsday scenario. Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones are out. Can we depend on this guy, Dexter Williams? And it seemed to suggest, he had 1 catch on 1 target for 18 yards. So, I think there's going to be a competition between Jamal Williams and Dexter Williams for who's going to be that backup. It's Aaron Jones' job, but I think Dexter Williams is much more dynamic and a complete back.
Who are you placing your bets on there?
After Aaron Jones? Dexter Williams. And Jamal Williams is going much earlier than he is. So,
okay. I'll tell you who I'm placing my bets on.
Okay.
Nitrogen Sports.
Oh.
See what I did there?
I liked it.
Nitrogen Sports is one of our sponsors, but they are the #1 Bitcoin sportsbook. You can check them out right on our website, eatsleepfantasy.com, and they're right there at the top, Nitrogen Sports. You can bet on everything on Nitrogen Sports. Obviously, you guys listen and pay attention to football, but if you're interested in other sports, they've got golf, basketball, tennis, baseball, esports, hockey, MMA, boxing, you name it, you can bet on it at Nitrogen Sports. Right now, if you want to try it out for free, they've got free rolls with guaranteed prizes, right? Not a lot of people do free betting with guaranteed $2,000 in guaranteed prizes for that. And they've got, big money gambling. If you want to bet an entire Bitcoin, which right now is about $11,000, you can do that as well. So check them out, Nitrogen Sports. Cool place, and for those of you that are located in areas where this is online betting is difficult to do, check out Nitrogen Sports because you might be able to do them where you're at as well. So,
I like it.
All right, let's move on. Next game here, Panthers and Bears.
This one was interesting.
2 pretty cool animals.
Yeah. Oh, who would win in a fight? The bear.
The bear. Yeah.
Is there an animal that could beat a bear?
That was really quick. What?
Is there an animal that could beat a bear? One-on-one.
I'd say anything that's like massively larger, so like an elephant.
No, dude.
Probably beat a bear. Huh?
I don't know. I'd take a bear.
Is that about a grizzly bear?
Yeah, a grizzly
bear.
bear.
Beat a grizzly bear.
Polar bears are bigger. Right? Yeah. Polar bears are way bigger.
We had this discussion. I think a gorilla would beat a bear.
A silverback? Dang, they're so... Yeah. We watched King Kong yesterday, so yeah, I'm a little bit into the gorilla would win right now. Anyway.
You don't think an elephant would beat a bear in a fight?
No, I don't. I don't think so.
I'm blanking on anything else, man.
Yeah.
A hippo. Hippos are really aggressive.
They are. That's true. My wife went on a hike in California and saw a bobcat this morning, which is pretty badass. I was really pissed I didn't go, but then I remembered, oh yeah, I don't like hiking. So, all right, moving on. Carolina Panthers. Man, Elijah Holyfield, the great boxer's son, who we basically left for dead through the entire draft process. He comes out at the combine and runs like a 4.78 40, and everybody's like, yeah, we don't want that guy. Then he goes to his pro day at Georgia and runs like a 4.88, and it was like, yeah, we definitely don't want that guy. But you have to put into account that's not football. And he showed you exactly what that was in his very first preseason game. He goes out there, scores 2 touchdowns, 1 receiving and 1 rushing, and just looked really, really good. And the funny thing is the NFL comp that I had for Holyfield was Cameron Artis-Payne. So it seems like they have that type for short yardage situations and whatever else. This kind of bigger bowling ball back that can catch the ball out of the backfield. So that's something to watch. I think he could definitely beat out Cameron Artis-Payne by the start of the season. Cameron Artis-Payne had 5 carries for 8 yards. Definitely didn't look very good. Pedestrian, some would say. But yeah, so anyway, I think that's probably the number one thing to take away from. As far as receivers go for the Panthers, there wasn't really that much. You know, Levron got 7 targets, had 4 catches for 51 yards, but I don't think he's going to make the roster.
I think it's pretty safe to say that there really wasn't takeaways on the Panthers side of the ball for this game, to be honest. I think that's a team that you kind of have to focus on in the second and third preseason games. But for you, for fantasy-relevant guys for that team, does it just feel like everything's already pretty much locked into place?
Yep.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like a lot's going to change for the Panthers like it can with other teams.
Correct. And, you know, we want to talk about change. The Bears on the other side, David Montgomery, as advertised, you know, I would be willing to say this. You know, in rookie-only drafts, you know, dynasty drafts, Montgomery was kind of the number 2 or 3 or 4 running back going off the board at different times. Josh Jacobs was 1. Some people had Darrell Henderson up there early. Some people had Miles Sanders up there early. Montgomery looks like he's going to be the rookie running back to own.
Yeah.
He looks amazing.
He right now is my 1 over Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. His volume won't be Josh Jacobs high, but that offense and that offensive line in Oakland is absolute trash. And so you look at the offense that they have with Matt Nagy, think very, you know, Kansas City Chiefs type offense, very dynamic. He's not going to need the same amount of touches as Josh Jacobs is going to need. And you look at what David Montgomery did, 6 touches, right? So 3 carries for 16 yards and a touchdown. And then he goes out and gets 3 catches off of only 3 targets for 30 yards. So he put up, you know, a 13-point game with 6 touches in the preseason. The kid's special.
How many? Here's the thing about Chicago that I don't think people really paid attention to over the last 3 years. Jordan Howard had 3 straight seasons of 250-plus rushes.
And that was with the little bitty guy, with Tariq Cohen there.
That was with Cohen, the little bitty guy.
He's tiny.
Yeah, he is. So I don't think it's... I think it's a lock David Montgomery has 200 carries.
Jeez.
So I don't think it's that all that close that he's not going to be a top 2 running back for rookies. Josh Jacobs has a shot. I think Miles Sanders has a shot, but I think David Montgomery will definitely get the work and is in the best offensive situation of those guys.
I like it. Yeah, I like it.
And if he can be Jordan Howard, and I think he's a better talent than Jordan Howard. If he can be Jordan Howard, that's a lot of production.
He's definitely much more dynamic. You know, you could argue perhaps that Jordan Howard is a better downhill runner, and I'm fine with that. But David Montgomery, his comp is Kareem Hunt. Like, he's that type of guy that can do it all, and it's just very elusive, and people bounce off of him consistently. So he can do it all. He's a better fit in that system for sure.
If that's his comp, I really think he can kickstart this offense. So let's...
Way to go, man. Way to go.
Yeah. Anything else you want to take away from the Bears here? You want to talk about the tight end bunting?
Not too much. The one thing I would say, just since we brought it up earlier, Chase Daniels, I think, might be one of the better career backups in the NFL history, and he looked really, really good. That guy is just cashing in checks like crazy without playing. Respect the hustle.
All right. Speaking of respecting the hustle, let's talk about the Broncos and the Seahawks. I don't know what that transition was. Can I get another do-over?
Sure.
Speaking of a weird animal battle, Broncos versus Seahawks. Is that better?
Yes, I'm taking a Bronco 100%.
How is the Bronco going to even attack the Seahawk?
Well, the Seahawk has to come down to its level and try to dive bomb it. And whenever it does that, the Broncos got some big old teeth. Just look at John Elway. And so...
Fuck. This has been on point here so far with this segment.
I did always think that John Elway looked exactly like his mascot. And I thought that was pretty clever by Denver. Because he looks like a horse. I don't know if he looked like...
Is it interesting that Peyton Manning played for the two horse teams
yes!
in the NFL?
I'm just saying. Just saying, man. Just saying. All right. So if we're going to talk about the Broncos, couple things. You've got to mention Drew Lock, their quarterback that they drafted in the second round. He had a much better showing than the Hall of Fame game where he looked abysmal. 17 of 28, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but he took 3 sacks. He's got a curve. This guy is not going to be an NFL-ready quarterback, I think, this year. But the potential is there. Now, the running back situation was very interesting. It starts the game off with Royce Freeman busting a 50-yard run right off the bat, and he looked good. He looked really good, actually, on that run. Now, after that, he gets stuffed 2 times in short yardage, whatever else. But what's important to know, Phillip Lindsay is healthy, and he is back, which a lot of people had concerns of. But it looked like Royce Freeman got out there first. So... just kind of something to keep in mind. This is going to be a true split, much so it's a different coaching staff. It's a different offensive coordinator. They brought over Spagnarello, I believe I'm saying his name right, from San Francisco. So think a little bit more of that kind of outside zone scheme that Kyle Shanahan and, Daddy Shanahan ran in Denver before him. So it's going to be a split. Lots of running backs are going to touch the ball there.
Daddy Shanahan. Okay.
That's what I call him.
I'm going to pause right here because usually we do something in our show or we start our show and we kind of take a little bit long to get into the fantasy. I wanted to switch it up today. And right here in the middle of our show, let's do some housekeeping.
Housekeeping? I like it.
Housekeeping, you want mint for pillow?
Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God.
Housekeeping, you want me to jerk you off?
You want me to jerk you off?
You want mint on pillow? Okay, so I do want to say just again, Brito brought him up earlier. I cannot believe how awesome this site is, and I didn't know about it earlier, and that is Nitrogen Sports. It is absolutely incredible. Head over to eatsleepfantasy.com. We have an open banner at the very front of the site. You're going to see a spot to click on our draft kit. You're going to see a spot to click on fantasy finishes chart, and then you're going to see the Nitrogen Sports page right there. Click on that. You can bet on everything, as Brito talked about. But one of my favorite things about it is you can bet this from anywhere. Because it is through Bitcoin and it is based out of not the United States, it gets to go around a whole bunch of the things that stop people from betting in the U.S. They have everything. MLB, football, soccer, cricket, esports. You can bet on other people playing games on their Xbox or whatever. It's just literally something for everybody. I looked around at the site, and I'm not going to lie, I really liked it. I kind of bet more than I probably should have, but it was a lot of fun, and I won on things I knew nothing about because it's who I am.
Yeah,
so
this is how much stuff they have on their site. They have a sport I've never heard of. What is snooker?
I don't know.
Exactly. But you can bet on it on Nitrogen
I think that's
Sports.
like the pool table thing where they have the bumpers in between it. So it's like
they
pool.
got motorsports, cycling.
Yeah, they got like
Aussie rules football.
I love me some
volleyball.
Aussie rules football. I love it.
You can listen to how specific this is, okay? You can bet on international friendlies men world volleyball. Like, if you want to bet on something sports related,
I like it.
All right. To continue our housekeeping a little bit, if you haven't checked out our 2019 draft kit, you can do so eatsleepfantasy.com. Like John mentioned, you can put /draft kit if you want to go straight to it, and it's right there. We're going to be updating that throughout the off season. It's $20. Check it out. It's going to give you a lot of insight for your 2019 season. I think it's definitely worth it, and the guys on our team put in a tremendous amount of work into that. Shout out to all of them, actually. If you want to follow some of our writers, I'm going to tweet it out on our next tweet on this show. So please make sure to follow all of the guys that have been contributing here because they do an amazing job. Check out the draft kit. It's really good. That's all I can say about it. And then make sure to check out our iTunes if you want to give us a little reviewy there. 5 stars, preferably.
Give a shout out to Debbie on there.
Please don't.
The best review anybody could do in the world, 5 stars, and then in the comment section just say, Debbie, that is all. That would be amazing if you did that. That would be the coolest thing ever, actually.
And then one last thing. I promised someone, I promised multiple people, hey, if you listened all the way through my solo pod, let me know. And I got quite a few tweets from people saying, hey, I listened all the way through. Not that bad. I did get a few never do a solo pod sober, things like that. I got this one. This is from Max Kellner, at Maxwell Kellner. He said, I made it all through the 52 minutes and 12 seconds on today's pod. Can I get a shout out? Because that would make the hour I suffered through worthwhile.
Oh, awesome.
Fuck. Harsh.
I love how
Fuck
they
you.
never hold back. Appreciate that.
Who
was that
feel
that
like
said
that
that?
hurts my feelings. That was Max Kellner.
Max Kellner, you are awesome. Thank you.
I don't know about awesome, man.
I do.
Like,
I do.
I recorded for almost an hour by myself. That's brutal in and of itself. And then I knew very well that the response to it would not be ideal. I need someone to talk to. I'm lonely. All right, let's move on. We've got one more game here.
Oh, hold on. We got to talk Seattle real quick. Just a couple
yeah.
quick things, if you don't mind. First off, Noah Fant did get 2 catches on the first series with Joe Flacco out there. He looks like he's already the starting tight end for the Broncos. But if we jump over to the Seattle Seahawks, Paxton Lynch, boy, came out firing shots, was the third-team quarterback. Geno Smith gets hurt. He steps in and looked amazing. I think that the NFL is better with Paxton Lynch in there. And the fact that he did it to the Broncos made it even better. Bittersweet. Also,
do you take anything away from Rashad Penny getting the first-team snaps for the running backs?
Yeah, I do. It shows you, it's going to be the Chris Carson show, I believe, first. But I think that they do actually view Penny and Carson as interchangeable. We go back talking about the Texans.
Gross.
It's very similar. So with Chris Carson out, Penny was the guy. He did look really bad running the ball, 6 attempts for 15 yards. However, he looked really good catching the ball. He had 1 catch for 27 yards. Penny's going to be one of those guys. He doesn't create on his own, but if you give him space, his highlight reel potential is unbelievable. So he's just got to make sure they get creative and get him the ball in space. DK Metcalf looked good. But Jazz Ferguson was definitely the kind of starlight player, whatever, with the 2s and the 3s. 4 catches, 54 yards, and 1 touchdown. Who knows that wide receiver rotation? I think you've got 2 guys that are locks right now with DK Metcalf and Tyler, of course. But outside of that, it's just a huge mesh, just a mess. So.
Am I crazy to think that DK Metcalf will have strong fantasy relevance for 2019?
It's very possible. They've just got to throw the damn ball. I don't know why they're like scared to throw the ball. It's like they know this secret that nobody else knows, and everybody else is like, hey, why don't you do this sometimes? And they're like, no, trust me, we know what we're doing. Like they're the Dwight Schrute of the NFL, if that makes sense. You didn't like
I feel
that.
like it's not a great... Nah.
I thought it was good. I thought it was really good.
You can do better.
I think it was perfect.
I want to do a story time here, but I'm not sure if we have time for it. We'll see. Let's move on. And
It's our last game. So you
Okay.
want to do story
All right.
time after the last game?
No, I'm going to do it right here.
All right.
We got one more game to cover. Okay. So I, in my regular profession, I work with kids with special needs, mostly kids with autism. We provide behavior therapy. I have a little girl client that we work with, and she has a therapist, and she had two people that were working and kind of working on some programs with her, and one of them was like, hey, we're going to tell you a secret, because he just got engaged, and he's like I'm going to tell you a secret. And she's like, I promise I'm not going to tell anyone that's the secret or whatever. And then I come over and I ask her, hey, what's the secret? She's like, I can't tell anyone. And I was like, but what's the secret? She's like, okay, but you can't tell anyone. She was so excited to like have a secret. And it's, anyways, since you said the secret thing, I had to mention that it's enjoyable things that happen to me at work with kids that, they don't have a lot of social skills to start, and then we really start to work on it, and then they start to blossom in that respect. And I just thought it was a funny little story I wanted to add.
No, I like it. And if you want to know the difference between your work and my work, I have a shorter story to. This happened yesterday. Starting AP U.S. history class, going over explorers, and I bring up Ferdinand Magellan, to which a student raises their hand and says, "Isn't he the one that circumcised the globe?" So yeah, that's my world.
Your story's better.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty great.
That is pretty good. Circumcised the globe.
So I'm not a good teacher, if that makes sense. But we knew that. All right, last game.
Yeah.
The Chargers versus the...
I don't think anybody assumed that either of us were good at our jobs.
Absolutely. Or
We just
fantasy
have
football,
jobs.
for that matter. But that's okay.
It is okay. You guys are here for the entertainment, not the
Yeah.
good insight.
Yeah.
Chargers, Cardinals. Kyler Murray.
All right, so if we're starting with Kyler Murray, he looked absolutely incredible and efficient from the start. The Cardinals were the worst offense of the last decade by a majority of metrics. That is gone now. Now, they might be equally bad as far as like their win-loss column. They are still a terrible roster. However, their offense will put up a ridiculous amount of plays and yards. Murray goes 6 for 7 for only 44 yards, but looked very, very good and efficient. Whoever the wide receivers are for this team, which there's going to be 4 starting wide receivers, that's what they like to do, they're all going to have fantasy relevance. And the only 2 that are locked so far is Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk. So those guys, their stock continues to rise. Very, very cheap plays that you can get late that you can start in a flex spot and be very, very safe just because of the volume. But whoever wins those last 2 roles will have value as well. And
Who's your prediction to be the third guy there in the rotation, or is David Johnson going to be realistically the third best pass catcher on that team?
I think that David Johnson will be the number 1 pass catcher on that team, to be honest with you.
More than Kirk?
I do, yeah. I think his target share will be pretty close to even with each other. I would say David Johnson, Kirk, Fitz. Then after that, I would say Keyshawn Johnson. And then I'm going to throw Hakeem Butler in there, even though his target share won't be as high. But if they're close to the red zone, I can guarantee you all of the reports out of training camp is that Hakeem Butler is scoring a touchdown a day. I don't think that he's going to be out there in the middle of the field, but once they get close to the end zone, Hakeem Butler's going to be in there. So
touchdown a day is a good pace.
Yeah. They work the red zone a lot down there. And again, all the reports are everything that he's doing, it's in the red zone. So Kyler Murray, as advertised, he just looks really, really good and calm. He's good. He's just a good quarterback. So, jumping over to the other side. Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead. I was going to do exactly that. Go.
Tyrod Taylor looks freaking unbelievable. 6 for 6, 72 yards. I think that it's going to be the Tyrod Taylor Easton Stick show after Rivers retires in the next couple of years, but that is a very deep quarterback room that looks very good. And Easton Stick, which a lot of people don't know, he took over as quarterback whenever Carson Wentz left North Dakota State, the Bison. But he's an athlete. He had 2 carries for 51 yards and a touchdown. So as a quarterback, that is beyond impressive. Also, Eckler looked like Eckler midseason, 5 rushes for 40 yards and 3 catches for 29 yards on 3 targets. So it seemed like the machine that is the Chargers just continued to operate as planned, even without Melvin Gordon. You know, I talked about Philly earlier as one of the most depth teams in the NFL. I think the Chargers belong in that conversation as well, because you could remove a couple key pieces and they're going to be just fine. And I think that we also have to mention Mike Williams had freaking maybe the catch of the preseason so far, just a back shoulder fade where he just Randy Mossed over, you know, their starting corner and caught it, came down, acrobatic feet in bounds, he looks unbelievable. So, yeah, that's what I got. Hunter Henry looked good too.
The Chargers will have a top 5 offense in the NFL this year. They've got enough pieces that there are going to be some guys that on a game basis may be forgotten about. So you may have a game where they forget about Hunter Henry, a game where they forget about Mike Williams. I do want to kind of focus and touch a little bit again on the running back situation, because Melvin Gordon is getting iffier by the day. And like you mentioned, Austin Eckler looked good. Justin Jackson can kind of be a guy that works in there a little bit.
And so as far as that rotation, real quick, Eckler was the guy between the 20s, so the middle of the field guy. And in their first drive, once they got into the red zone, Justin Jackson came in, run the ball, touchdown. Like they already seem to have their design roles. So if you, assuming Gordon's not there, who would you rather own, Eckler or Justin Jackson?
100%.
Which one would you prefer?
100%. Eckler, because I think Eckler's also capable of, even if he's going between the 20s, of scoring from, not the red zone, from not inside the 20. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So he still has the touchdown potential while also getting the majority of the work.
Yes. I like it.
Yep. So every day that the situation with Gordon continues, I get more interested in Austin Eckler, because I think that offense is going to be really good. Really good. They just have so much there that they're going to be moving the ball with ease. And if a team is moving the ball with ease, the yardage and the touchdowns will come for these running backs.
And one of my favorite things about Eckler is, let's just say hypothetically Gordon gets a deal and comes back. Eckler still has standalone value. He's not just a handcuff like Justin Jackson. If Gordon comes back, Jackson he's worth nothing. Outside of one of those two guys getting hurt. Eckler has fantasy value all on his own. And now it's multiplied without Gordon, but even if Gordon comes back, still a fantasy asset.
Don't say worth nothing, because he's worth a lot to his mom, okay?
His mom would not roster him in a standard 12-team, 10-person bench.
Oh, okay. You mean at all? Like his mom wouldn't roster him?
She shouldn't.
That's rough.
She shouldn't.
She shouldn't. Play with your mind, not your heart.
Yeah.
This is fantasy.
I play with something else.
Okay, that'll do it for our show. My name's Christian Brito. We're going to wrap it up right here. We hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for part 3 of our Week 1 preseason recap. We're going to go through all of the games, and we'll see you on the next show.
Give Debbie a shout out on iTunes.
Yeah. Eat, sleep, fantasy, you rockin' with the best. NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. We talking mock drafts, running backs, better follow the conversation with
John,
Dale, Christian, and Armando. Screaming Eat Nation, we doing what we like. Tune in every week, guarantee we get it hype. Fantasy football enthusiasts, I know you plan to be joining us on Eat Sleep Fantasy. Yeah, Eat Sleep Fantasy. Eat Sleep Fantasy.